All started with an old dusty map found in a forgotten library by three people who thought they had nothing to fear. There was Daniel, a skeptic journalist with a sharp tongue; Claire, a paranormal investigator haunted by too many scars from her past; and Marcus, a tech enthusiast who believed gadgets could explain everything. The map led to the ruins of an abandoned mansion deep in the Appalachian wilderness. At first, the forest seemed normal, green, alive. But the closer they got, the darker everything became. The trees turned gray, almost lifeless. The path twisted unnaturally, as if it was guiding them away or pulling them in. Daniel joked, trying to break the tension. "Guess we're not in Kansas anymore." His laughter was hollow, forced. Claire didn't laugh. She clutched her camera tighter, her eyes darting to the shadows. She could feel it. Something wasn't right. By the time they reached the manor, it was dusk. There it stood, massive, broken. The mansion loomed like a dying giant, its shattered windows staring at them like empty, hungry eyes. The gate creaked open on its own. Marcus tried to laugh it off. Wind, right? But even he didn't sound convinced. Inside the house was worse. It felt alive. The grand chandelier above them hung crooked, its crystals coated in thick dust. The portraits on the walls, their eyes seemed to follow, watching their every step. "Creepy," Marcus muttered, setting up his motion detector in the main hallway. The device beeped, signaling it was active. "Nothing to worry about," Daniel said. "Just an old house full of ghost stories." Then the detector beeped again, and again, and again. Beep, beep, beep. The group froze. From the corner of their eyes, they saw it, a shadow. It darted across the hallway, tall, skeletal, and impossibly fast. "Did you see that?" Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel shook his head, his bravado cracking. "It's nothing, just a trick of the light." But the fear in his eyes betrayed him. In the library, they found it. A journal. Its leather cover was brittle, its pages yellowed with age. Inside were the ramblings of a man, Elias Grayson, the mansion's last owner. He wrote of rituals, dark, forbidden rituals, of summoning something. The entries grew more chaotic, the handwriting trembling, thus as if the writer's hand could barely hold the pen. One passage read, "This house, it's alive. It twists our fears into flesh. The walls whisper my name. We're no longer alone." As Claire read the words aloud, the room darkened. The chandelier above flickered, then went out completely. The scratching began. Soft, faint, growing louder. It was coming from the walls. The scratching turned into banging. The walls weren't just breathing. They were bulging, like something inside was trying to break free. Marcus's gadgets went berserk, lights flashing, alarms blaring. "We need to leave," Claire said, her voice trembling. But the house wouldn't let them. The front door slammed shut with a deafening boom. The locks clicked into place, trapping them inside. "Open it," Daniel yelled, pounding on the door. Then the whispers started. Soft at first, like a distant chorus, but they grew louder, surrounding them, a language they couldn't understand. The chandelier above began to sway violently. With a sickening crack, it fell, shattering inches from Marcus. Panic set in. They split up, desperate to find another way out. Claire went to the basement. It was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. There she found it, a ritual circle, drawn in blood. The candles were still burning, their flames flickering unnaturally. Then she saw them. Figures. Half human, half shadow, crawling out of the darkness. Meanwhile, Daniel and Marcus found themselves trapped in an endless hallway. No matter how far they ran, they ended up back where they started. The portraits on the walls now showed their faces, twisted in terror. Eventually, the group was drawn to the attic. There, at the center of the room, was an altar. It pulsed with a dark, unnatural light. Standing before it was the entity. It wasn't human. Its body was a shifting mass of flesh and shadow, its form constantly changing. Its hollow eyes glowed red, piercing into their souls. It didn't speak with words. Its voice invaded their minds, overwhelming them with fear. Marcus, trembling, whispered, "What is that?" Claire answered, her voice barely audible. "It's what the house was feeding." The entity moved closer, its presence suffocating. Marcus, in a moment of bravery or madness, used his gadgets to overload the altar. There was a blinding flash of light. The entity screamed, its form dissolving into smoke. The house began to collapse. Walls crumbled, the floor buckled, the group scrambled to escape. breaking through a boarded window just as the manor imploded, leaving behind nothing but ash. As dawn broke, the fog lifted. The forest seemed normal again. They had survived, but the scars remained. They say some places are cursed, but this wasn't just a curse, it was a nightmare. If you ever find a house like this, don't go in, run, and don't look back. Because once it has you, it never lets go. The haunted manor may be gone, but its evil remains, waiting for its next victim.